If you have a basic understanding of human anatomy, you will know that humans cannot breathe underwater. But what if we flip the script? Our entire world becomes flooded, and we obtain the powers of a fish, granting us the ability to breathe water, albeit with the side effects of not being able to breathe air. Could we beat the entire game like this? Let's dip our toes in and find out. So the start of our underwater adventure definitely doesn't begin like any other. With us being underwater and all, we can't see a thing, so I open up my starter bag. I quickly organise the cluttered mess that is our inventory right now, and I find the one saving grace of this challenge's early game: Shrine Potions. My main goal as of right now was to make a beeline to the ocean, as that would be one of the only places where we'd get good accessories. Namely flippers, possibly even a trident, which are essentially the cloud in a bottle and Hermes boots of this playthrough. And if we could obtain some flippers, that would grant us infinite flight. But, oh no, looks like we've run into a problem already. Our game is frozen. I quickly jumped to the conclusion that the game was just trying to load all of the water at once and completely died. And after about 2 minutes, we were back in action. Let's just hope this doesn't happen again. Spoiler alert! Well, this time it only took about a minute for the game to regain consciousness, but we were getting completely pummeled by a zombie. Okay, let's try going underground instead. We could probably find some underwater chests down there. But then jellyfish happened. I found a golden chest, which we're surprisingly not as excited about. But there was a magic mirror, so I'll happily take that. We found a cave house, giving us one of the most useless items in this challenge, a cloud in a bottle. Yeah, I promise this will get interesting soon enough. Ah, there we go, the sacred water chest we was after. However, it's guarded by a blue jellyfish. Whatever shall we do? Now see what we're... Oh, an inner tube. Okay, we can work with that. Not exactly what I wanted, but we can still make use of it. Just like the flippers we was after, the inner tube would still grant us infinite flight, albeit with much less precision. And I'm sure you can guess, the main reason we was after a method of vertical transport is planetoids. Of course there's the ones that give you life crystals, gems and ores, but we was after this one specific jungle one that is guaranteed a water chest inside. So as long as we can get one flipper or inner tube, we'll basically have a snowball effect of water chests. Anyways, the trident. If the flippers are the cloud in a bottle of this challenge, then the trident is most definitely the Hermes boots. I'm not sure how many people know this, but in 1.4 or 1.4.4 or 1.4.1, the trident got a rework allowing it to increase your mobility when you're underwater, which is pretty awesome on its own, but there is one other feature I discovered with it. Let's go, Star Fury and Fledgling Wings. But anyways, holding the trident with the inner tube equipped will give you the flipper effect. For no reason, I'm not even sure why, but I'll happily take it. But as soon as you stop holding the trident, the inner tube kicks back into effect and you start floating up. I spent a little bit more time exploring the left side of the world as I was heading that way anyways. We found a dungeon which signifies that there is the sulphurous sea nearby. Yeah, I don't know what's up with Calamity's backgrounds. In fact, it would be pretty nice if the whole world was that way. Any modding people, hit me up in the comments. Oh yeah, another feature that you're not really meant to discover, the sulphurous poisoning debuff applies everywhere in the sulphurous sea. No matter what pool of liquid you're swimming in, it will affect you. I plonked down a chest and did the sort things out later strategy from my stealth only series. Shout out to you if you watched that. In fact, no, who hasn't watched that at this point? Thank you so much for 20,000 views. You guys really are awesome. I went all the way to the right side of the world to discover the ocean. Actually pretty interesting how it looks when the entire world is flooded with water. After almost dying, we found ourselves another trident. Then we got hit by this fish, I forgot to quick heal, and the debuff finished us off. Not really at the top of my game here, am I? Well, let's just forget about that. I constructed a house for my NPCs who can also breathe underwater. I'm not even gonna question how that housing is even livable. Anyways, I went to explore the underground desert. Hopefully we could find some life crystals, possibly even a magic conch, and maybe even take down our first boss of this playthrough. I am pretty sure the obvious choice in this challenge would be the Desert Scourge. With his defeat, we'd be able to craft the Victide armor, which would grant us a plethora of underwater boosts, including heavily increased mobility. Not to mention all of the accessory and weapon upgrades too. Anyways, we found a lone Crimson Altar, so we crafted the Desert Medallion, although we're definitely not prepared to fight the Scourge as we are now. The Star Fury wouldn't be a bad weapon to take down a Scourge, but our mobility was complete dog shit. We was gonna have to come up with something pretty unique to take on the Scourge. Onward, you look at that, we found the Sunken Sea. Let's go. Anyways, it was back to banging our heads against the drawing board. How about we dip our toes in and see what we're actually dealing with here? Well, we're definitely not fast enough, that's for sure. We can just about outpace him with the inner tube, but we still don't have the agility to actually dodge his charges. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, we made some iron armor. For the sake of our convenience, I decided to build some more houses so we could obtain pylons. However, this is when I also remembered NPCs will not move into underwater houses. Yeah, I wonder why. I came up with a pretty easy solution to this though. We just craft an insta house and boom, there we go. I made a total of 3 houses just to be sure that NPCs would actually move in, and after not too long, we could confirm that it actually works. I was on my way to the desert when this happened, so that gave me some peace of mind. So I'd baked up a little strategy for the Desert Scourge, something I'd actually tested before, so I can confirm it works. You construct a perfectly horizontal minecart track, probably about half the length of the desert. Oh yeah, and keep in mind I tested this outside of water, as minecarts will obviously move a lot slower underwater. Anyways, here goes the first attempt. To my surprise, we actually got him down to half of his HP. As you can probably tell, the main gist of this strategy is to completely face tank him and use the minecart to deal damage. So 180 max HP just wasn't going to cut it anymore. It was time for a gearing up montage. Pretty nice Crabulon arena right here. And some Hermes boots too, it's about time. I decided that since we were so deep underground now, we could obtain the cavern pylon. So I once again performed method insta house, threw the guide and merchant in there, and bought the mushroom pylon. I forgot that thing even existed, not gonna lie. Now we were making some serious progress. I found an air pocket near the surface of the desert, so I set up yet another pylon. And I thought while we were at it, we may as well get the sunken pylon. I moved in the good old guide and merchant, but unfortunately it wasn't nighttime, so while I waited, I decided we'd go explore for a bit. We'd finally maxed out on life crystals, and we also gathered up some gems to make the magic storage as well. Before we knew it, night had fallen upon us and we built the sunken pylon, bringing us up to a total of 4 pylons now. Yeah, just ignore my abysmal organization skills. Now that I had the full 400 maximum HP, there's no way the Desert Scourge isn't getting completely obliterated. I'd gathered up 2 extra life crystals while I was in the sunken sea, so I crafted them both into heart lanterns. I placed down the heart lantern, and you may be wondering, how are you going to put a campfire there? Well my shig, all you have to do is place some blocks, save and exit, and once you relog you'll be able to create an air pocket. Saves getting the super absorbent sponge, but it takes a while though. Anyways, now for the main event, I summon in the Desert Scourge. I do take a considerable amount of damage in the first phase, but we should be fine. Yeah, looks like we need to upgrade ourselves even further. I went to the underground desert to hunt for the Bass statue. The extra 5 defense it provides may not be much, but we're gonna need any boost we can obtain. I'll admit I could have used an iron skin potion as well, but I didn't actually have any on me at the time. With the statue placed down, I equipped my defensive accessories and summoned in the boss once again. And this time he aligned himself in the perfect way for us to hit all of his segments. Once again, the same thing happens with the desert nuisances. Okay, the main scourge returns, let's hope we can get lucky. Well, I can't say I was expecting that. We'd finally taken down our first boss in this challenge, and this is going to be the most important boss. With the defeat of the Scourge, we can craft the Victide armor, allowing us to essentially move at normal speed underwater, pretty much making the Trident obsolete. There was an accessory that would synergize well with the Victide armor, but we were going to need some more sea remains. Although we could move very fast with the Victide armor, we still wasn't agile enough to actually dodge the worms. So I guess it's back to the minecart method. This has got to be one of the most satisfying things you can do in this mod. And yeah, we don't talk about how close I was to dying here. With our extra sea remains, I crafted the Great Bay pickaxe, and more importantly, the Shield of the Ocean, granting us the following effects when combined with Victide armor. Due to the Victide armor set giving us increased defense while underwater, we had a total of 36, allowing us to completely face tank the Desert Scourge. From that attempt, we got the Scourge of the Desert, which if you remember my stealth only series, you'll know exactly how good that thing is. I was feeling pretty powerful at this point, so you can probably guess what we did next. Just gotta wait a couple minutes, and there we go. Yep, we were totally ready for the Eye of Cthulhu. There was one slight issue though. I couldn't see a thing, and we had no shine potions left. So I ran all the way to the desert and threw down at least 100 glow sticks. It ain't much, but it's about all I've got. My main source of damage right now was throwing the Scourge directly underneath me and allowing it to charge right into the Eye of Cthulhu. By no means was it the greatest damage, but it was easy and consistent. And our 36 defense pretty much nullified any hit from this boss. I remembered I was using the melee helmet, but I was using a rogue weapon, so I wanted that extra damage, you know. I went to go craft a rogue helmet in the middle of the fight. Not particularly the greatest move, but what can you do? I tested out the stealth strike for a bit, but considering we was in the early game and we hadn't geared towards stealth yet, the spam attack was miles better, especially with the Eye's reduced defense in his second phase. Before we knew it, we'd actually taken him out, and from his treasure bag we would obtain some inventory filler and the Shield of Cthulhu. It feels incredible finally being able to dash. Okay, so with that mini boss rush out the way, we could finally attend to something we'd been ignoring for a while. That being the magic storage. I alt-clicked the recipes on Recipe Browser to favorite them. If you're not doing that already, you totally should be. Then I got to exploring. Thankfully, the only items we needed were 2 emeralds and 2 sapphires, which due to some of Calamity's changes are most commonly found just above where lava spawns. My main strategy here was using the subtle light from the Scourge of the Desert to see through walls. I'd use this to locate any cave systems, mine over to them and check for gems. Before long, I did find a pretty huge vein of sapphire, but just like with my previous series, the emeralds were taking absolutely forever to find. I wish I was joking when I say this, we found 10 life crystals but no emeralds. Okay, that's gotta be like the 4th glowing mushroom biome we've wait, hold on a minute. Emeralds! We found emeralds! Yes indeed, we had finally located some emeralds, but I still wanted to check out this mushroom biome. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything too great in there, so I decided to call it a day in the mines. Although, while I was underground, I saw a notification for the acid rain, so I thought, may as well take advantage of it. I set up my insta-houses while getting utterly bombarded by fish. Since the sulfuric poisoning debuff affects us no matter where we are in the sulfurous sea, I had to resort to a strategy of going in for about 5 seconds and going back out and going back in. Well, at least we got the pylon though. There is actually an item that gets rid of the sulfuric poisoning, but of course you need acid rain materials to obtain it. Fish. Well, we got the acid rain to 86%, that's good enough, let's make the magic storage. I put down the crafting interface and the storage heart, put down the storage units, and now we'd finally made it to the later part of the sort it out later strategy. And there we go, everything is just miles better now. I saw that we could make some crimson storage upgrades, but we didn't have enough crimtane bars to make all 10 of them. Yeah, guess what we're doing next? Were we ready for the Brain of Cthulhu? Probably not. Did I feel ready? Yes, I did. Right from the get-go, I noticed the projectiles the creepers shoot moved a lot slower. I'm not sure if it was just placebo, but it sure did make the fight feel a lot more awkward, and I was taking some very heavy damage. I locked in though, and eventually some of the creepers started to fall, the hearts dropping from them being just enough to sustain me. Although the knockback from taking damage would severely mess up my rhythm. Okay, now it's time for the second phase. Things shouldn't be too bad from here on out. My Scourge of the Desert would... Buddy, I don't think you're meant to make that sound. My Scourge of the Desert would pass through blocks and lock onto him no matter where he was, making this the absolute perfect weapon for this fight. The floatiness of being underwater did make dodging slightly awkward, but it was nothing too severe. Believe it or not, I thought the final phase was actually easier than the first, and without too much trouble, we took him out. From the treasure bag, the only thing of note we got was the crimtane bars and tissue samples. Not realizing that a meteor had already landed, I went to sleep and got punished with a goblin army. Fantastic. As you probably would have guessed, the goblin army was nothing special in this world. Okay, now to find the crash site. The map made it absolutely no secret where the meteor landed. I pulled up in person and or excavated the entire thing. Now for the one and only reason I wanted meteorite bars, the Meteor Fist, the rogue weapon that absolutely carried the first part of my stealth only series. But will the spam attack suffice? I don't know, let's find out. For this series I picked a Crimson World, as I usually find the 2 evil bosses easier than the corruption variants. If you've watched my double bosses series though, you will know that fighting the hive mind underwater gives a heavy advantage. A fact that I'd forgotten at the time. Nothing much I can do now though. The decreased agility of being underwater definitely gave me a hard time with the worms, as they were not affected by it in the slightest. The hive is actually fairly easy to dodge though, considering its projectiles are slowed down in water. It's just the worms that are like, f you. I'll admit, the Meteor Fist stealth strike was much better than the spam attack. and if I'd geared into stealth at this point, I might have completely shredded the boss. However, we had no Goblin Tinkerer yet, so there wasn't too much we could do in terms of build. Okay, now for the heftiest worm in this fight, and probably the hardest as well. Getting caught once by this thing would result in a chain of hits, making every little mistake much more punishing and resulting in our death. What we needed right now was more mobility, so I decided to go for some flipper potions. In my playthroughs, I don't use the AlchemistNPC to buy potions. I think that's pretty much cheating. But one thing I do consider fair is unlimited potions at 30 stack. Once you've made 30 of a specific potion, you've done all the hard work. After that, it's only going to be an inconvenience to you and just take up time. There are people like Chief Logan who are complete Calamity purists and will use pretty much no quality of life mods, which I heavily respect. But at the same time, you need to strike up a good balance, and most importantly, do what's fun and convenient for you. I personally don't like to use too many quality of life mods, as it makes the game feel more convoluted, easy, and overall detracts from the quality of my videos. But at the same time, the whole 30 potion infinite stack thing is just a necessity. Anyways, to get these potions, we were going to need Shiverthorn and Waterleaf. Shiverthorn doesn't grow underwater, so we were going to need to make a completely dry farm for it, which would be pretty easy with the super absorbent sponge, right? But for that, we were going to need to find the angler and do a bunch of quests. I came to the ocean to hunt him down, but I quickly realized he's not going to spawn underwater, is he? If you're a seasoned Calamity veteran though, you will know that there are alternate methods of obtaining him. We'll just sit here and wait for him. With the sulfuric scales we got from the acid rain event, I crafted the Effigy of Decay, which removes the sulfuric poisoning debuff. So now all we have to do is wait here for a specific enemy, and what do you know, perfect timing. If the angler isn't currently present in your world, killing a trasher will spawn him in, for whatever reason. But if you let the angler get eaten again by another trasher, he'll drop the golden fishing rod. Sadly though, I was using a mod that makes NPCs invincible. I promptly disabled that mod, reloaded into my world. I don't think I've mentioned yet, it takes like a whole minute for my world to load. After, I kid you not, an entire 20 minutes of trying to get this thing to spawn, I gave up. In that amount of time, we could have done at least half the quests we needed. While waiting for nighttime for the angler to move back in, I set up the jungle and snow pylons. However, I noticed somewhat of a major issue. Bait does not spawn underwater. No worms, no grasshoppers, no grubbies, buggies or sluggies. Fortunately, from wooden chests you can obtain a can of worms, giving you just enough bait to get yourself started on quests. But in our main world we hadn't found a single one. So I made a new world and there we go, can of worms obtained. It was now time to catch our first quest fish, the slime fish. But how are we going to fish with our entire world underwater, you ask? We'll just have to make ourselves an air pocket. I use empty buckets to drain out the water, and there we go. I found a fiberglass fishing pole while exploring in the jungle, so we was already pretty well off. The Calamity Mod reworks the angler's rewards by granting a list of rewards depending on the number of quests you've done, with number 1 granting you the spadefish, number 30 being the golden fishing rod, and number 16 being the super absorbent sponge. Yeah, don't worry, I'm not going to make you sit through all of these, let's just skip ahead. The angler's second quest reward actually gives you stuffed fish. I forgot about this at the time, but they are pretty much herb bags, giving us an incredible head start on our farming. I don't think I've ever seen anyone do this in Terraria before. I'd like to mention real quick that stuffed fish can be obtained from fishing in the surface during the daytime, but the rate at which you get them is so slow that farming would be better anyways. So, after a grand total of 15 quests, I turned in the 16th and obtained the super absorbent sponge. Now we can really get things started. Having only made a herb farm once in Terraria, and multiple years ago, I didn't really have a clue of where to start. I excavated a nice large space, put down some snow blocks, I'm sure all of you watching are probably screaming internally. I planted all of my Shiverthorn seeds, waited 5 in-game days, and nothing. I was completely oblivious as to what I was doing wrong at this point. After a quick gander on the wiki, I saw that any plant can grow in any type of planter box. So I thought to myself, why don't we just use all blinkroot ones? There's no better way to kill time on the Blood Moon than to fight Crabulon. He wasn't very hard. In fact, he was very easy. The water pretty much made him float. It was an incredible sight to behold. Either way, I got my rage upgrade, so I was happy. I thought to myself, maybe if I get rid of the background walls, these plants will actually grow. I didn't realize at the time, but in the planter boxes there was already some blinkroot and daybloom that were blooming. Daybloom. Eventually I caught on and harvested them, with the start of regrowth of course. Now this is where the fun begins. You can obtain multiple seeds from a single herb, which means that given enough space, your farm will exponentially grow. It was time for us to expand this operation, although it was kind of annoying having to run back into the water every 20 seconds. This is the part that makes everything worth it though. And there we go, our ultimate farm is complete. Now all that's left to do is sleep, harvest, and replant our seeds until we have enough materials. With the Daybloom we had, I finally did something you've all been waiting for. We crafted a full stack of Shine Potions. No longer is our world shrouded in darkness. I also made a full stack of Iron Skin Potions, then some Mining Potions. I had enough Daybloom to make Swiftness Potions, but I didn't have any Cactus. Luckily I found this neat little trick in the comments section of a Chief Logan video. I used a guide on the Calamity Mod Discord server to locate the shimmer with pinpoint accuracy. Slight issue though, there's a bit of water. Worry not though, this is where my epic gamer plan comes into fruition. We were going to obtain the Goblin Tinkerer, obtain the Shimmer upgrades, and Cactus all at the same time. The first thing I did was enclose the Shimmer into its own dedicated space. Then I'd even out the surface and get to blasting away. For such a large volume of water, the super absorbent sponge just wasn't going to cut it. Oh yeah, can't forget a pylon either. After excavating that giant hole, I quit the game and reloaded so all the water would settle. I'll go back to the Shimmer and... okay, we're nearly there. One more giant hole and a bit of cleanup later, and we have our perfectly dry Shimmer. Let's get the upgrades first. We'll use the Vital Crystal, Arcane Crystal, Galaxy Pearl, and Ambrosia. I take a Shadow Candle with me to increase the spawn rate of the Goblin, and would you look at that, he's already here. Now to get these Swiftness Potions. I'm not sure how anyone would expect pumpkins to shimmer into Cactus, but we're just going to accept it. And there we go, there's our full stack. Now back to focusing on the farming, we still needed those flipper potions. Since we had the Tinkerer now, I upgraded my Hermes boots into Frostbark boots. And of course reforged my accessories and weapons. We were so close now. While waiting for the herbs to grow, I decided I'd finish all 30 fishing quests, as the 24th quest grants the Superheated Blood, something we'll be needing later. Allow me to demonstrate the capabilities of this thing. Due to how overpowered this thing is, I am not going to be using this on any bosses, except the Wall of Flesh. Because trust me, if I did use it on bosses, this run would be an absolute joke. Anyways, now we can finally achieve our ultimate goal, 30 flipper potions. The agility bonus unfortunately doesn't stack with the Victide armor, but we still get infinite flight from these. Now, allow me to demonstrate why we won't be using the Shark Mount on bosses. Need I say more? As funny as it looks, the run would be an absolute joke if we did, so we're gonna play normally. With our accessory and weapon upgrades, not to mention all the potion buffs we got, I believe we are more than ready to take on the Perforators. The flipper effect on the flipper potion was just absolutely crucial at helping. Oh, the game's frozen again, okay. Oh, come on, you're nearly there. The enemy ascended beyond your oh, okay, we're back, let's go. As I was saying, the flipper effect was a great help in this fight. We made it back to the final worm phase, this time no longer being limited by the ground, we had much more control over our movement. As you can probably guess, we took down the final worm with ease, leaving us with just a hive. The only obstacle in my way now was my poor aim. But yeah, the Perforators really were no match for us. Seeing as how that very one-sided fight went, I thought it would be a good idea to challenge Skeletron. So with the Aerialight Ore we mined, I crafted the Turbulence, the all-powerful, the almighty tracking disc. And then with nothing much else to do at this point, we summoned in Skeletron. As per usual, the tracking disc does a stellar job at taking out all the hands. And also, Skeletron's homing skulls were slowed down underwater. Oh no, how am I gonna dodge this? With Skeletron's hands gone, I used the Turbulence as it had a much better single target DPS. His hands respawned, I took them out once again, and I proceeded to melt the entirety of the second phase. It's actually pretty funny seeing how slow his skulls are in the final phase. This right here is the death mode experience. Anyways, we took him down, granting us access to the dungeon and the abyss chests. But before all of that though, there was one accessory we could obtain now, the aquatic heart, dropping from the question mark enemy in the ocean. However, after a few minutes of waiting, I just couldn't get one to spawn. So I thought we'd go straight to Slime God instead, that way we can obtain Zerg potions as well. It took us a while to find some Blight Slimes, but eventually they'd come around. And with the Blighted Gel dropped from them, we crafted the Overloaded Sludge and summoned in the Slime God. Once again, the Slime God was one of those bosses that just aren't very accustomed to the water, making it very easy to dodge. Not gonna lie Shigs, I thought this challenge would be harder. Maybe it gets harder, who knows. Anyways, my main weapon of choice for this fight was the Turbulence. You simply cannot go wrong with it. Before long, we'd split both of the slime gods into their second phase. The flying slime balls were kind of awkward to dodge, but that was about the only difficult part of this fight. We'd just take out the slimes one by one, slowly but surely, until eventually the slime god was defeated. We took our adrenaline upgrade and got straight to crafting. To make these Zerg potions, we were going to need an alchemy table from the dungeon. So while I hunted for that, I picked up pretty much everything else I could find too. And before long, we'd eventually stumble upon one and craft our potions. Now we wait. This thing does have a 25% drop chance, so this could take a short while. Plus the fact that every time we do kill one, we're gonna have to run for our lives. You reckon the Turbulence is viable on this boss? Okay, second one located and perfect. The Aquatic Heart turns you into— hold on, looks like we've got some company. The Aquatic Heart turns you into a water elemental, granting you vastly improved water mobility and movement speed in general, inflicting enemies with glacial state when you get hit, and an ice shield which absorbs 20% of enemy damage, with a cooldown of 30 seconds. Now, this is where we face somewhat of a dilemma in this challenge. As you can very clearly see, there is no water in the underworld. So what exactly are we gonna do? Well, the superheated blood we got earlier lets us swim completely unscathed in lava. Let me explain my logic real quick, I hope this makes sense. So obviously we're gonna assume our Terrarian can hold their breath outside of water, just like a human can hold their breath inside of water. But obviously we're not gonna be able to take out the wall of flesh in a single breath. Which is where the lava shark comes in, allowing us to survive in lava for whatever reason. By that logic, we can assume the Terrarian becomes one with the shark, and this shark clearly has no problem traversing lava, which leaves us no other choice than to fight the wall of flesh entirely submerged in lava. Let's also add another thing to what I said earlier. The obsidian skin potion also grants us obsidian lungs, allowing us to breathe lava. Yeah, this is getting far-fetched now, but it's the only option we have. I used the Onyx Excavator to dig a tunnel through the entire underworld. This is actually pretty satisfying. Okay, that should be good enough. All balls, no brain, let's get this party started. There aren't many pre-hard mode weapons that can phase through blocks, but I know for a fact that the Scourge of the Desert is one of them. It may be slow, but as far as I knew at the time, it was the best option we had. Slight issue though. The lava wasn't doing its thing. I think we're gonna have to save and exit to make it settle. There we go, problem solved. After some research on the wiki, I crafted the Enchanted Axe, a rogue weapon that just so happens to go through walls and home in on enemies. Then I dived into the abyss in search of the herring staff. It's kind of funny how the abyss is pretty much our natural habitat at this point. Anyways, we got the Enchanted Axe and herring staff, so let's get straight to the wall of flesh. Although being a single target weapon, the Enchanted Axe was doing a pretty flawless job locking onto the wall of flesh's eye. I'm not exactly sure where the herrings had wandered off to though. Our damage was pretty awful, but we weren't getting hit too much though. But we'd forgotten to bring an obsidian skin potion. Yeah, we could have used an obsidian shield as well. So the hellstone ore was slowly chipping away at our health. It was somewhat avoidable by staying in the exact center of our tunnel, but that was tricky to do. And eventually we would be reduced to charcoal. Yeah, there we go, got my obsidian skin potion this time, let's go. Once again, our damage was abysmal, but we were practically never getting hit. The only thing that could stop us now was running out of tunnel. See, we were so close to— oh no. Okay, let's try something new. Maybe we could make the Statagel summoner armor and use a summoner loadout, as I do remember the herring staff being very effective against the wall of flesh. New drip obtained. For this loadout, we weren't going to be needing any movement accessories, as the shark provided all of that. And in terms of defense, we were practically never getting hit, so it was all damage we needed. I made the spirit glyph, took down some ghost bells for the voltaic jelly, crafted that into the jelly charged battery, and put on the abyssal amulet I got earlier from fishing. I held my breath and obtained another guide voodoo doll. I think we're ready now. I made sure to right click the wall's eye so the herrings would focus on that and only that. And with that one simple change, our damage went from complete dog to incredible. Wake up babe, new wall of flesh cheese just dropped. As funny as this was, this had to be the most mundane wall of flesh fight I've ever done. Can't say it didn't work though. Even his scary final phase wasn't a threat in the slightest. And to my surprise, our goofy plan actually worked. It was now time to move on to bigger and better things. In the next episode, of course. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. The next part of this series will be out next Saturday. The mods I use, the music I've used in this video, and my Discord server are all in the description. Don't forget to make a cup of tea and have a great day.